Hi, I'm Natalie Brunell for Bitcoin Magazine, and as we get ready to celebrate Thanksgiving, we want to touch on how the Fed and the mainstream media are addressing the inflation happening at the grocery store. Now, even though the government has officially calculated inflation as running at just 6.2%, meat and poultry are up more than 15% since the start of the pandemic. That's according to the Consumer Price Index. And for Thanksgiving, it ruffled some feathers recently when the St. Louis Fed tweeted out a post sharing how much more affordable it is to have a soy-based meal rather than turkey. Here's the tweet right here. You may recall it, saying a serving of poultry costs $1.42, while a soy dinner costs just 66 cents, with this graph from the IMF. Now, a lot of big Bitcoin names came pouring in with reactions, including someone who is rather an expert in the topic of how inflation has impacted our food system, Saifedean Ammous. He writes about it in his new book. I want to read you an excerpt from his writing about this topic and how money supply expansion and inflation lead to the proliferation of cheaper foods that can do real harm to our health and to our waistlines. Saif said, quote, "As prices of highly nutritious foods rise, people are inevitably forced to replace them with cheaper alternatives. As the cheaper goods become a more prevalent part of the basket of goods, the effect of inflation is understated. To illustrate, imagine you earn $10 a day and spend it all on eating a delicious ribeye steak. In this simple consumer basket of goods, the CPI is $10. Now imagine one day hyperinflation strikes and the price of your ribeye increases to $100 while your daily wage remains $10. What happens to the price of your basket of goods? Well, it can't rise tenfold because you can't afford the $100 ribeye. So instead, you make do with a chemical shitstorm that is a soy burger for $10. The CPI magically shows zero inflation. No matter what happens with monetary inflation, the CPI is destined to lag behind as a measure because it is based on consumer spending, which in itself is determined by prices. Price rises do not elicit equivalent increases in consumer spending. They bring about reductions in the quality of consumed goods. Now, this gives us an understanding of how prices continue to rise while the CPI registers at the politically optimal 2 to 3% per year. If you're happy to substitute industrial waste sludge for ribeyes, you will not experience much inflation. Gotta hand it to Saif with his writing. You know, I commented on that Fed post too because I just think it's so sad when the government isn't forthcoming about the real causes of price increases that hit the poorest and middle classes the hardest, and instead they ask people to adjust their behavior to something maybe less expensive, even if it's not as healthy for them. Take, for example, this NBC News clip in which the solution for inflation from this reporter is just, well, not buying or eating a turkey.
And while we are on the topic of something that could be controversial, perhaps forego the turkey. Bear with me.
Ooh.
I know that is the staple of the Thanksgiving meal. However, some people think turkey is overrated, and so it tends to be the most expensive thing on the table. Maybe you do an Italian feast instead. And I will say this, if you tell everyone you're having a Thanksgiving without turkey, some guests may drop off the list, and that's a way to cut costs too.
A little turkey hot dogs, maybe. Change
recommending
it up
it,
a little
I'm just
bit.
Keep the
offering it.
pie.
Bitcoiners want you to have your turkey and eat it too. And the nice thing about the monetary asset is while the price of Thanksgiving dollars in fiat has been getting more and more expensive, it's been getting cheaper and cheaper when priced in Bitcoin. This is a time for thanks. So most importantly, we want to share how grateful we are for the community of Bitcoiners who are adamant about calling out the manipulation in the current monetary system and for doing hard work every day to share their knowledge with newbies. Thank you so much for following Bitcoin Magazine, for following my podcast, Coin Stories, and we can't wait to share more content with you throughout the holidays and beyond. Happy Thanksgiving from Bitcoin Magazine.
Yep.